Hey guys, I want to make what I intend to be a shorter video here, although you guys can look at the final timer there to see how long the video actually ends up being. But I wanted to make a sort of commentary or response to something I've seen for a long time, on occasion. It's sort of a repeating theme that a woman or even a guy will come on and say, well, yeah, but my relationship with my guy or my partner is 50-50, right? We have a 50-50 relationship. He doesn't do any more work than I do. So you're not right, Dan, because there are a lot of relationships that are still this way, and we just don't conform to the old gender roles, and we split everything down the middle in terms of the responsibility and all that. I just wanted to make a response to something I've noticed that really puts sort of a wrench in that sort of theory or idea, which is that relationships may be 50-50 for a period of time, or when it comes to certain things like chores or, maybe even expenses in some cases. But the problem is the way that women pick their relationship partners, right? And it's similar to the whole idea of equality, gender equality, right? Where women will say, well, we just want equality for women. Well, yeah, but you only want, if you're talking to your average, basically feminist woman out there, you only want equality of convenience. And in order for equality to mean anything whatsoever, it has to be absolute equality across the board, right? It can't just be, well, we want half of what men have here, or we want to share in what men have here, but we don't want this, right? We're okay with abortion rights. We deserve that, but men shouldn't have the right to paternal surrender for kids that they don't want to be financially responsible for, because he shouldn't have gotten her pregnant, but then it's okay if she kills the fetus, right? That's not equality. The Duluth model, there's so many things you could talk about. The family courts. If you're not going to have equality when it comes to those things, then equality, of course, becomes meaningless. And that's something that is talked about, I think, pretty regularly within the men's community. But in a similar vein to that, I see something very similar being true when it comes to so-called 50-50 relationships. And the problem is that the man is expected to invest so much more in the relationship in most cases than the woman, and stay invested and take most of the responsibility for the direction that the relationship goes compared to the woman, right? As we hear being said from time to time in the men's community, she doesn't run the race with you. She waits at the finish line and picks a man that's one of the winners. And so what ends up happening, and this is the analogy that I use, because if anybody's watched my videos for a period of time, I like to use analogies sometimes to the point of absurdity. But it's like saying, well, we're going to pay 50% of your health costs, right? We're an insurance company, and we're going to offer you a policy where we pay 50% of your costs. Well, that's nice, right? I mean, that's not really a good policy these days anyway. But the problem is you have this super high deductible that you have to pay before we start paying 50% of your expenses. So it's 50% after you invest $10,000 into whatever health problems or health procedures you want to address, right? That is pretty much what your modern 50-50 relationship between a man and a woman is today, right? The man is expected to be successful. The man is expected to be a good provider and protector. The man is expected to have basically already won his personal race, at least that leg of it, right? At least in terms of where he is at that point. And then the woman's interested in him because of that. And then after that point, now everything's 50-50. Right? I do half the stuff around the house and he does half the stuff as well. Regardless, a lot of the time, whether he makes more money than her, right? We share 50% of the expenses. Well, if he's making most of the money, then it's still not 50-50, right? Because essentially he's putting most of the money into the account. So there's a lot of things to consider in terms of what it is that a man is expected to bring to the table before the relationship even starts. But in most cases, the women that say, oh, I'm in a 50-50 relationship with my man, why did you pick that guy? Did you pick that guy when you were both starting out? Did you pick that guy when he didn't have any money? Right? Did you pick that guy before he was successful? And in some cases, right, it's theoretically possible that you can have a 50-50 relationship to a degree. Then you have the other side of the coin, though, which is that the man is always expected to take responsibility should that relationship fail, right? So the moment that the woman decides, you know what, this 50-50 relationship isn't working out for me, I'm just going to take half his stuff. I'm just going to take his house. I'm just going to take the kids. In a lot of cases, a woman can do that successfully. So really, even when women try, even if a particular woman is actually trying to have a 50-50 relationship with a guy, you know, if you're married, it's not 50-50 anymore because the state's going to take her side and she has most of the authority now and he has most of the responsibility. So that in itself really disrupts that so-called 50-50 arrangement. But even if you're trying, even for a woman that thinks that she's trying to sort of achieve that goal of having that 50-50 relationship, did you actually pick that guy before he was at least somewhat successful in life? Right? Did you pick that guy regardless of whether he would have been a good provider at the time that you were in a long-term relationship with him? Because in most cases, the answer is no, right? And women just don't even think about this because in a lot of cases, and this is a big factor as well, in a lot of cases, women don't even see the guys that aren't successful, right? We talk about this as well within the manosphere, within the men's community, that a lot of men are just invisible to women unless they check those boxes of being a good provider and protector, right? Or being Chad or Tyrone, right? Being masculine and seeming to be the alpha male. The problem is that in a lot of these cases, women don't really sign up for the relationship at the same level that the guy signs up for. So again, it would be like, hey, you have $50,000 in medical bills and well, let's just say that your deductible is $10,000. Well, you have to put in that $10,000 and then the rest of it is 50-50. So you actually end up having to pay $30,000 and the insurance company only pays $20,000. Normally deductibles aren't that high. I probably didn't use appropriate numbers there, but if you use lower numbers, it's even more drastic, right? Let's say your deductible is $5,000 and you have $8,000 in medical expenses. Well, you pay $5,000, and then if the rest of it, the other three, is 50-50, then you pay $1,500 on top of that. So, it's 50-50, right? We're paying half of your insurance expenses, but in reality, you're paying $6,500 and they're only paying $15,000. That's pretty much what the average relationship, the so-called 50-50 relationship between a man and a woman is today. It's 50-50 after the man pays the high deductible, and he's still paying the premiums to have the policy in the first place, right? To continue that policy, he's paying premiums every month, which it's pretty easy to create an analogy there to the upkeep, right? The expenses of having a woman in a relationship. So is it a good deal to have to pay this high deductible if everything else is 50-50? Is that worthwhile to a man to want to be part of that so-called 50-50 relationship? Probably not. Right? Probably not. Because he had to do all the work for her to even consider being with him in the first place. And now he's still having to take care of his own stuff, basically, right? He's still having to do half the stuff around the house. Even if it is 50-50 in truth, which you could argue how common or how rare that is versus the man having to do a lot of the harder work, right? Why is it worth it for him to make that investment just to be in a situation where he's still doing half of everything, which is basically what he'd have to be doing if he lived by himself anyway, right? And then if you have kids or she decides that she's just going to divorce your ass and kick you out of the home, she's going to take that home and she's going to take those kids anyway. So it's not 50-50 in a de facto sense anyway, because even if you've both, as the man and the woman, made up your minds to do that, it's like Turd Flinging Monkey has said in the past. You're role-playing the 50-50 relationship. It's 50-50 until the woman wants to pull the ripcord. So in general, I would argue it's still a bad deal for men, but it's really, in a lot of cases, guys, not a 50-50 relationship in the first place. And I've been looking at that. It's like the woman may honestly think that it's 50-50 because she does half the chores or pays half the expenses or whatever. but why did you get with that particular guy? And in a lot of cases, it's because he was already at least modestly or moderately successful to begin with, right? She didn't get with a guy that's like, well, I'm just going to work the same job for the rest of my life, and I don't really care about saving money, and I've never thought about being a father and whatnot. Women don't care about those guys, right? They don't see those guys as relationship material. And it's understandable based on their biology, right? Wanting to find a guy that can be that provider and protector, having hypergamy, right? But when you account for this hypergamy, there's no way that it's a 50-50 relationship, because the man has already had to run his own personal race, or at least several legs of his race, before the woman even wants to get with him, right? And the only reason is that because he's been successful up to that point in a lot of these cases. So my advice, guys, is don't fall for this sort of idea that, well, if I just find a woman that wants a 50-50 relationship, that's different than being with a feminist woman or a woman that has these entitled expectations of a guy that she's in a relationship with. In a lot of cases, she's not really different, right? And she may even think that she is. And she may be willing to try to put forth some effort in the relationship, but why is she getting with you or any other particular guy? Well, it's probably because he already had more to offer, right? It's probably because he already has this investment in himself that at some level, if you're talking about the average so-called blue pill guy, he's probably doing a lot of that to try to attract a woman in the first place, right? So he's already put a lot of effort into trying to look like or actually be a potential stable partner, a potential stable partner for a woman. And what have you done? You look pretty. That's basically what a lot of women have worked on, right? I'm not saying women don't work or they don't invest in themselves at all. They do, but not in a way that benefits the guy. And then when you actually get together, it's supposedly 50-50, right? Like I say, the analogy that I use is the insurance analogy. As dry and boring as that may sound, to me it works very well. Okay, I'm going to pay half of your medical bills, your medical costs, but you have to meet this deductible first. Well, if the deductible is $5,000 and you have $8,000 in costs, that means you're paying $6,500, because they're only paying 50-50 of whatever's left after you've already made that initial investment. That, to me, guys, is the most typical case with a so-called 50-50 relationship between a man and a woman today. And I think we should all be skeptical about whether things are actually even or equal when you hear some woman say, or even a guy say, I'm in a 50-50 relationship with my partner. The reality is, in a lot of cases, guys, it's not really 50-50, because the man has been expected to put more investment in that relationship and has a lot more to lose, especially in a marriage or a relationship with children, should it all come down, and the woman has a lot more to gain. And so you've got to question whether that's a 50-50 relationship to begin with.